can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, I'm gonna be talking about X-Force number 39 by Benjamin Percy and Robert Gill. So the big deal in this issue is that since Beast is now on the outs with Krakoa, what happens next? What is the Quiet Council gonna do now that Beast has taken X-Force and run off with it, or at the very least created what I guess you could effectively be called Beast Force? It seems like the Quiet Council is willing to just let Beast go, because at the end of the day, while he has definitely committed no shortage of war crimes, not just since he took over as the head of X-Force after House of X #1, but he's committed his fair share of war crimes even before. And I love how in this issue, a lot of people who had forgotten Beast had done some wild and crazy stuff, some very problematic stuff in the past. And I'm not talking about the X-Men or anyone on the Quiet Council, I'm talking about readers who probably might not have gone back and read some of the old X books in a while. I always like to point stuff like this out because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people say, man, I just wish Beast would go back to being good. Man, he was always so good. It wasn't until House of X that he just started acting a whole monkey. And in this issue, Benjamin Percy points out very specific moments, even going back to everyone's precious Chris Claremont, Jim Lee era X-Men, yeah, nah, man. He was already kind of on that Fox News BS. Case in point, they bring up MGH. And this is actually something that goes all the way back to 1972's Amazing Adventures number 11. This is actually where Beast had recreated, or I guess at the time, technically it was thought to be when mutant growth hormone was created, but with all the retcons and everything going on, it's treated more like the moment that Hank McCoy had put MGH back out into the wild, the mutant growth hormone that was initially meant to work as a way to unlock the latent X genes in normal people. This ultimately just wound up becoming a drug that just ran roughshod all over the streets. There was even a major story arc with the character Patriot in Young Avengers that he was addicted to it because he wanted to have powers. We also can't forget about Beast's multiple war crimes in regards to the legacy virus. And while Hank McCoy is not responsible for creating the legacy virus, that's not his crime. His crime actually is just how he treated other people during that time frame. The usage of the legacy virus against the Skrulls was just as much Cyclops' war crime as it was Beast. But something else is brought up by Deadpool in a tongue-in-cheek fourth wall breaking reference shortly after Beast pre-House of X era war crimes are brought up, and it's the character of Trinity. Now, some people may or may not remember this character. She didn't really appear in a whole heap of a lot of comics. If you were more familiar with the X-Man series, like the actual X-Man, not X-Men, X-Man series, then you probably might be a little bit more familiar with her. She was a character that was intrinsically tied to Nate Gray of the Age of Apocalypse universe. Trinity was a character who could absorb the energies of a person upon their death and use them to create plasma blast. And with all the mutants that were dying around the time of X-Men number 27, when the legacy virus was in full swing, her absorption of these death energies was astronomical. And this caused her a great deal of pain and suffering, because when she absorbs these death energies, it's not something she does consciously. It's something that just happens. She can't control it. So if a bunch of people die all at once, she takes in all that energy, and it's something that makes her mentally and emotionally unstable, to the point that it causes her great pain and suffering. And when the suggestion was made by Mr. Sinister in X-Men number 27 that they use Trinity as a sort of hound to suss out who was infected with the legacy virus, despite the fact that being near that person in their moment of quotey fingers getting ready to die, it would be something that would be physically and mentally harmful to her. Beast, while he wasn't necessarily happy to hand Trinity over to Mr. Sinister, or rather in this case, to let Mr. Sinister get away with taking Trinity and using her for this purpose, Beast, still just the same, convinced Rogue and Iceman to let her go. Now, in the same breath, Wade brings up that, oh, right, we don't talk about Trinity. And it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference. It's actually kind of a double meaning, because Trinity is one of those characters who technically Wade is not necessarily supposed to be talking about, because she warned him the last time that they met in Deadpool Assassin number 6 in 2018 for him to stay away from her, because he ultimately cost her an opportunity to give life to her unborn child. A child that was presumably with X-Man. She was trying to take the necromantic energies of another person's child and use it to put life back into her own child. A child who, for all intents and purposes, had become an undead monster as a direct result of her own powers. She wanted to take the child's energy so that she could fix her own child, but Deadpool was the one who stopped her from doing it, not just because it was a bad thing, but because he knew Trinity would forever hate herself for killing someone else's child, even if it was to give her own child a new lease on life. And while Trinity respected it, she doesn't necessarily like Wade anymore now. But the other reason why Deadpool probably made the cheeky comment that we don't talk about Trinity is because she's a character that's largely been forgotten by all but the most diehard of X-Men fans. And Marvel just really hasn't seemed very keen on doing much with her as of late. The last time we saw her was in Deadpool Assassin number 6, which was in 2018. And even since House of X, even with everything that's been going on as of late, she has largely been MIA. We also can't forget about how Beast, during the Inhumans versus X-Men event, how he pretty much betrayed the X-Men. Now, granted, there were some more nuanced circumstances to that, but he did technically choose the Inhumans over the X-Men in this, in an era where the Inhumans' Terrigenesis was ultimately killing mutants, and that it would at some point make the planet Earth uninhabitable for mutant kind. And while yes, this was a problematic situation, it still was a very big issue. And Beast had largely remained estranged from the X-Men up until House of X for the most part. That said, Sage is now in charge, and she has, for all intents and purposes, been ordered to leave Beast alone, to not chase after Beast, regardless of whatever her mission with her new version of X-Force. It's just not going to be allowed, because Beast, while technically he has betrayed Krakoa, he's still fighting for Krakoa. Even if his methods have gone beyond the pale for Krakoa, their interests are still aligned, and they can basically use Beast as a sort of weapon at their disposal, but one that they can have plausible deniability over, because Beast is very likely going to kill a lot of humans, and with the rule of kill no man and all of the UN complications that Krakoa has right now, it's best if they're just able to say, yeah, this guy went rogue and we have nothing to do with him. They'll probably put out a public statement, disavow all connections to Beast, or maybe they won't say anything. It's hard to say at this point, but with the fall of X coming up, there is supposed to be an earth-shattering secret that's going to be announced, and I don't think Beast is that secret, but I definitely think Beast's actions as of late won't help Krakoa when it comes time to defend itself from all of its greatest critics. Now, earlier I talked about Beast war crimes pre-House of X. Well, it just so happens that Sage is going to need a new version of X-Force, because one of Beast's current war crimes is now about to be running roughshod all over Krakoa, and that is all of the different mutants and aliens and other individuals that he had experimented on that little Death Star base that he had created without anyone's knowledge. The Iraqi mutant Sever Blackmore has taken control of that base, and he has what he calls an entire cell block of Beast experiments, and he's unleashing them on Krakoa just for the shiggles. So right now, Sage is going to need all the help that she can get. Of course, we're also going to have Deadpool, Omega Red, Black Tom Cassidy. They're going to be back for the ride, as they have always been up to this point. But now, in light of all the events of everything going on between Wolverine and Beast, Wolverine has bigger fish to fry. He's more worried about taking down Beast. X-Force lacks a Wolverine, and if you've seen any of the solicits, you probably already know by now, or if you've seen the cover for this book, you know by now, Laura Kinney, who also operates as Wolverine, is now on the team to replace Logan. And this actually gives Laura something to do, because ultimately she's not on the X-Men anymore. She left the team prior to the recent Hellfire Gala, and while another Wolverine wasn't necessarily put in her place, the X-Men did see the return of the original Laura Kinney, who now goes by the name of Talon. So right now, Lara just doesn't really have a place to be anymore, so finding herself on this X-Force team is probably the best thing that could have happened for her. And of course, we also know that Sage is going to have a little bit of oversight now, something that Beast never had under his iteration of X-Force. And this is actually something that was brought up by Storm. Storm was the one who actually suggested that if Beast didn't have oversight and everything he was doing was just all kinds of crazy and wild and had no oversight whatsoever, not even from Charles Xavier, maybe this time, even with Sage being in charge, knowing that Sage will do the right thing, maybe, just maybe, they should put someone from the Quiet Council on the team to make sure nothing amiss ever happens. However, the pick they go with is Colossus, who does himself volunteer for the role. The problem is that we can't forget, and I would forgive you if you did, because X-Force is kind of one of those slow burn stories. It's not as bombastic as a lot of the other X titles. It takes its very sweet time telling stories and letting plot threads unfold. And one of the plot threads that's been unfolding since the beginning of X-Force is what the hell is going on with Colossus. The fact that he's being manipulated by his brother, Mikhail Rasputin, who is using a mutant known as the Chronicler, a mutant who has the ability to write down whatever he wants and make it a reality. And what he has been doing for Mikhail Rasputin is writing out events that would lead Colossus into the Quiet Council. Now, we also know that the Chronicler is trying to get free from being under the thumb of Mikhail Rasputin, but he has been caught on a couple of different occasions trying to write his way out of the situation. And it seems like after one of the last times we saw the Chronicler try to get a word to Domino about everything that happened, we saw that Mikhail had caught wind of it and it shut it down and seemingly hurt the Chronicler in the process. And now we see the Chronicler's back to writing exactly what Mikhail wants. This is edging Colossus closer and closer and closer to power on Krakoa. He's on the Quiet Council. He gets to see everything that's going on, and of course he gets to report all of that stuff back to Mikhail Rasputin, hence why Mikhail has always been just one step ahead of the X-Men and the Quiet Council and Krakoa and everything since he's been bird dogging the island after House of X. But now he's gonna have Colossus even closer, not just being on the ruling body of the entire island, but also being a part of what is essentially the CIA of Krakoa. He will have all the deepest, darkest secrets and intelligence about Krakoa that he's ever had before. He's gonna have an inside track on the whole operation, and more importantly, he'll be able to manipulate events even more so from the inside. Now, I think this will ultimately be where we see the Chronicler finally get some kind of a word out to somebody to help him, to help free Colossus of that level of control, but I don't think it's gonna happen immediately right away. But now that Colossus is officially on the team, which is something that was teased ever since X-Force #1 was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a part of the team, and he really hasn't been. He's mostly just been a background player who's not officially a part of anything other than the Quiet Council, and that happened months, I would even say a year after his inclusion on the front of that X-Force #1 cover. It's safe to say that that plot thread is going to be coming to a head very soon. Another thing that's going to be interesting here is that we also see the return of Kid Omega. Kid Omega has been missing in action since X-Force #29 when he helped defeat Cerebrax, and in this massive explosion of psionic energy, Kid Omega had seemingly disappeared into the ether, that his resurrection backup was even missing from the Cerebro drives. So it was one of those scenarios where it's like, okay, well, what is going to happen now with Kid Omega? When is he coming back? Is he just gone and we're just not going to talk about him for a while? Because that kind of seemed like that was the case. X-Force really hadn't mentioned him very often since his disappearance. It was almost as if he didn't exist anymore. But now he is back, reappearing out of a portal, something very similar to what Magic would create with her soul sword, and we even see him wielding something that looks very similar to a soul sword. Whether it is or isn't is another story altogether. It could just be another one of Kid Omega's constructs, but Kid Omega has returned. He is visibly older than what he was when he initially disappeared. He looks like he is well on his way to being an octogenarian. He even has a long Gandalf-like wizard beard, and also seemingly was fighting something on the other side of that portal that almost kind of looks similar to one of Cerebrax's tentacles, albeit a little bit more organic than what Cerebrax was. Whether that is something to do with Cerebrax, because Cerebrax had also kind of disappeared in the shuffle as well, we don't really know yet what is going on there, but whatever is going on, Kid Omega needs X-Force's help because something big is going on back on the other side of that portal. Either way, I don't think Beast is completely out of the picture yet. I think we will see more of him over on the Wolverine side of things. However, I do think he will pop up occasionally here or there. I don't think he's completely 100% done with X-Force by this point, but I do think whatever happens to Beast will be in Wolverine's comics and less over on X-Force, which is fine considering Benjamin Percy writes both of those series, so it's not like there won't be any consistency there. That said, that's everything I really wanted to talk about with X-Force number 39. I'm still really enjoying this comic. I love the slow burn nature of it, and not to mention I like it when stories just take time to breathe, let stories just kind of progress. And well, yeah, sometimes it does come off as a bit annoying considering that we've waited so long for certain story arcs. I'm perfectly fine with it if I feel like the juice is worth the squeeze in that case. If the overall end game turns out to be something that is incredibly interesting and entertaining, it doesn't bother me if it takes a while to get there. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, do the YouTube thing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you tap that notification bell because I put out multiple videos throughout the week so that way you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, let me know what you thought about X-Force number 39. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.